Hello everyone. I am Andrew Dornan, also known as the 12th Kind, and today is another not weekly roundup. My brain, pardon that. But today is actually a weekly video challenge. So without further ado, let's get started. So, you may be wondering, hey, weekly video challenges have been kind of sporadic, if not missing for the past couple of iterations. And yeah, that's a thing that's happening. You should probably check out, this is my visual representation of weekly roundups. Weekly roundups happen every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. They kind of explain what's happening for like the general audience without giving too much detail that I would typically save for patrons. And one of the things was that I'm considering slowing down the production of weekly video challenges and maybe trying to find a way to replace that with a different kind of content, or just, you know, maybe not stress about the production value and maybe just do off the topic, like off the hook kind of stuff, and make it less scripted and kind of more, whoa, let's go on a journey together kind of thing. So that's kind of what's going on. I can't even keep my thoughts straight. For today, I decided, because by the time you're getting this, Metroid Fusion would have been finished. In fact, today is the today, the day I'm recording this, is the day that the finale of Metroid Fusion gets released. So you're getting this the day after that. So I would like to talk about Metroid Fusion and why I absolutely love that game, and why I love the Metroid games in general, and why Samus is my waifu. That's not a secret, by the way. If you throw a stone at any of my collab videos with Dan, or just any of my Metroid stuff, like, you would know that Samus is my waifu. Which I should probably get a Metroid poster in here. I've got Doctor Who, Angry Birds, which I actually don't even play that much, although that is my favorite Angry Birds game, just so I throw that out there. I got a Star Wars poster. I actually have two. I've got the big one and the small one. I got a Big Bang Theory poster and a Minecraft poster, which you can't see. It actually looks like I pointed at Big Bang over here, but I realized that I'm looking at, that makes me look like I'm pointing at my dresser. So that's Big Bang, and then off screen, which I'm actually pointing at my window, but is actually to the right of Big Bang, is my Minecraft poster. So I should get a Metroid poster. That's a thing I should probably work on. So yeah, I love the Metroid games, and I really love Metroid Fusion. Now, why is that? Well, we could state the obvious about Samus, be like, oh, well, it's because she's a strong, independent bounty hunter, of course. But now let's talk about the games, because that's where I started. So I think, my first Metroid game, I'm keeping all of this stuff because it's kind of weird and shows how goofy I can be when I'm off the script. My first Metroid game was actually the very first Metroid game on the NES, because I was great. I was lucky enough to be a part of the eShop Ambassador program, and so because of that, I got 10 free NES games and 10 free Game Boy Advance games, and I heard a lot about Metroid and the Metroid games, and so I jumped into the original on NES and was frustrated and confused and lost and a bit scared because I didn't know what to do. The game was really hard, and I was just like, eh. And I was just kind of going through each NES game trying to figure out which one I really enjoy. I really enjoyed the original Super Mario Brothers, but of course, you know, everyone kind of does, and it also was one of the very few games my sister and I played together. We would either play Mario Kart, was it Wii Sports Resort, Super Mario Bros. The original or Super Mario Bros. 3, which is actually between the two, we played Mario Bros. 3 because it's a far superior game compared to the first one. Anyways, so I was that was a side tangent. I was just poking through all the games, and the original Metroid, it kind of put me off. And looking through what people have to say about it today, I'm not the only one, so I feel good about that. Then I moved on to the GBA games, and I came across Metroid Fusion. I was like, well, I had a hard time with the original Metroid, but that was probably because it was on an NES game, and not a lot of those have aged really well. And so I jumped into that, and fell in love with it. There was a lot of characterization, a lot of personality. There's just enough lore given, and just enough like general information given that made me realize that Metroid as a series has so much to offer in terms of lore, and I love learning the backstories of a lot of things. And jumping into Metroid Fusion, I just loved it. It was something that I enjoyed from the beginning to end, and I beat it. I think out of all the games that I got through the Ambassador program, not only was that the first one I beat, but I think that was also the only one that I beat out of all the games given by the Ambassador program. And so after I finished it, I would go back every now and again and play it again, because it was honestly a lot of fun. And just there was something about the world of Metroid when you included the X-Parasites. It had this kind of ominous feeling that, like, you know, you can defeat the X-Parasites here, but like maybe they're not just on SR388 and on the station, maybe they're elsewhere, and you know, all of this other stuff. And it's kind of hard for me to put into words how I felt about the whole thing, but honestly, I absolutely loved it. I was terrified of the SAX, and the first few runs of that game that I played through without looking up a guide, every time I would go to fight the SAX, I always fought it, you know, the traditional way, not the way that I fought it in the series finale that you saw yesterday. And so it always gave me a bit of trouble, and like that moment at the end when the SAX, spoilers by the way for Metroid Fusion, obviously, and like at the end when you go off against the Omega Metroid and the SAX appears, and you're like, are you helping me or just trying to defeat the Predator? And so it was one of those things where it was Alien versus Predator kind of thing, and you're like, are you actually helping me, or are you just being like, oh hey, you're here too, I'll get to you in a minute, first I need to defeat the Predator? And then that doesn't happen, obviously. And so you get the core X-Parasite, which gives you the Ice Beam, and then you're able to defeat the Omega Metroid. And it was definitely one of those things that I thought was very interesting. It was kind of cool to see that, like, not only in the past runs, but even this most recent Let's Play, that actually, I think it was my final casual run, that I noticed that there were the Metroid carcasses littered all around SRX. And in the Let's Play, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And part of me always kind of, you know, I guess hoped that you would encounter one of the Metroids, or at least see a silhouette of a Metroid, like, taking out X-Parasites or whatever. But it was still neat to be like, oh, okay, so Metroids did make it out of the station, despite the SAX just completely wasting that area. But yeah, it was definitely, I definitely really enjoyed just all of it, really. And then from Metroid Fusion, I moved on to, I tried the original Metroid after Metroid Fusion, and I was still kind of but recently I was watching Mark Brown's Game Maker. The channel is Game Maker's Toolkit by Mark Brown, and there's a specific series called Boss Keys where, you know, in this newly started season, which is season 2, he's going over Metroid games and Metroidvanias, and he showed a map of, you know, Planet Zebes, or Zebes, or however you want to pronounce it, in the original Metroid, and I saw it and I was like, huh, it's kind of, when you put it in a map, it's not that confusing, but like, you know, when you're trying to play it, it's kind of disorientating. But after watching that specific video a few times, one for, you know, the fact that it's Metroid, another because Mark Brown, and finally is because of like wanting to get into game design myself and trying to pick up some pointers. I have yet to go back into the original Metroid, and in fact I feel like at some point in the future I might do a Let's Play of Metroid Zero Mission, just because it'd be a lot of fun, and it would definitely be a way of me of experiencing like the original Metroid, air quotes, but it would, like, I think after I beat that, then I would be able to go back and beat the original Metroid, maybe. I tried going back to the original Metroid 2 after beating Metroid Samus Returns, and it's just, they're kind of two different games, Metroid 2 and Samus Returns, or was it called The Return of Samus? No, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, and then Metroid Samus Returns. But yeah, so it's just kind of interesting on how all that works. And then, gosh, I honestly, I don't know per se how to put into words how much I actually really enjoy the Metroid games, and I guess the Metroidvania genre is something that I really enjoy. A lot of people don't like that backtracking and going back and solving other puzzles, but I honestly, I really enjoy it because you're given an obstacle and it's like, you can't do this now, but you might be able to do it later, and it's one of those things where, you know, after getting the thing that enables you to do that earlier puzzle or get into that secret room, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, cool. And it's just one of those things where like you're slowly unlocking what the world has to offer and kind of learning through gameplay and the scenery, kind of more or less the lore and all this other stuff about where you are, just through the gameplay and through all this backtracking, and all that stuff. It was just, I'm kind of babbling because it's kind of difficult for me to articulate just how much I really enjoy this franchise and the like the series as a whole. There's two games that people really don't like in the main Metroid game, and I will hit on a third, but only because people seem to forget. So the two big ones are Metroid Other M and Metroid Prime Federation Force. People do not like those games, and trying to piece together everything, Metroid Other M, there could, I guess maybe there could be something different about the story, or maybe just the voice acting, or maybe, well, not the story as like a story, but like how the story is conveyed. I guess that's, you know, something that could be worked on or something, you know, just like something different. I'm not entirely sure how, but just like tweak it a little bit, maybe, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. The other big one, however, I am quite sure about, is Metroid Prime Federation Force. I have like ever since the game was announced, I kind of dove headfirst into all the gameplay footage and even the Blast Ball demo. I had, pun intended, a blast with the Blast Ball demo, just because it was a lot of fun and it was kind of silly that you had, you know, this Metroid Prime Federation Force, and it was already a very different art style and had a different spin or whatever, and just it was a lot of fun to me. Sadly, I don't really have the money to get Federation Force, and I also don't have friends that want to put forth the money on a game like Federation Force to play it with me. And I've been the one thing that I'm skeptical about Federation Force is the single player, where I'm like, because I've heard stories of how other games, like I'll take Borderlands for example, like when you have friends, the enemies just get extended health and it's considered like scaled properly or whatever. And that was kind of one of my main concerns with Federation Force. But other than that, I was ecstatic that we got a new Metroid game, and I didn't even notice that it had Prime in the name. In fact, the only reason why I didn't like the fact that there was Prime in the name was because that made the title too long. Metroid Prime Federation Force. It's just like, cut out Prime. Just say Metroid Federation Force, because that's easier to say than Metroid Prime Federation Force, because it's just, my mouth is tired from saying it all the time. But like all of my other friends, like they hated it. They were like, why is it Metroid Prime Federation Force? Why does it even have Metroid on? I'm like, well, when you think about it, spin-offs are a good thing. Like, I feel like Metroid is one of the few franchises under Nintendo's belt that could actually benefit from a plethora of different spin-offs. So like, you've got like, and not just like general spin-offs like Metroid Prime Pinball, which we'll get to in a minute, but like stuff that explores like other like facets of the universe, like stuff that explores like the Federation, which is what Federation Force does. It puts you in the shoes of these, you know, Federation pilots, more or less, in these giant mech suits, and you go around and you beat space pirates, and it looks like a good romp of fun. And believe me, I would totally, if I had the money, throw down the money to get me and my 3 geographically closest friends copies, so that we could all play it together and just to have a lot of fun. Because honestly, that's one of the things I've always wanted. And you could argue that Metroid's all about isolation, all that stuff. And I feel like that as far as the world is concerned, Metroid is far more beyond just the story of Samus Aran. It's the story of the Chozo and Mother Brain and the space pirates and, you know, Ridley and Crate. Although I'm not sure there's much story you can have behind a giant dinosaur like Crate. But also, I said the same thing about Ridley, and yet here we are. But even like the Federation Force, like, you know, Samus's like CO back in the day, or like even why they thought biomechanical hybrids to run their ships was a good idea, with, you know, light of the Phazon incident or whatever. So that's kind of where I am, is I feel like Metroid is a lot more than just the mainline game centered around Samus Aran. There could be so many other spin-offs in so many different genres. Like, we have a team-based shooter. Why not have an RTS that's focused on the Federation's war with the space pirates? That's a game I would definitely buy in a heartbeat. Just be like, what? $60 for that? Yes, please. It's something that I don't know. I guess I'm not a normal fan, because I'm just happy to see new games made for the franchise. Like, when Federation Force came out, I apparently was the only person that was excited about Federation Force being released. And I sort of, to some extent, defend Other M. That's mainly because I see nothing wrong, per se, like nothing inherently wrong that ruins the game. I would have to play it again, to be honest. But I think I've gone on long enough. It's 20 minutes. A typical weekly video challenge is only 10 minutes, so I should probably wrap it up here. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, share this video with your friends who also love Metroid as much as I do, and maybe, I don't know, maybe next week I'll talk about Bakugan and Pokemon and just tabletop games in general. That could be fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let's meet down in the comments below and talk about Metroid, but let's keep it positive, alright? Like, I know I brought up Other M and Fusion, or not Fusion, but Federation Force. So yeah, I brought up Federation Force and Other M, but let's talk about those games objectively down in the comments, and let's keep it peaceful, alright? So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. And tomorrow you'll get another weekly trailer and the weekly roundup, alright? So see you guys then. Bye-bye.